Jonah, a prophet of God, stood overlooking the glimmering sea, lost in thought. He had just received a command from God, a mission that filled his heart not with pride, but with dread. God told Jonah, "Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, for its wickedness has come up before me." But Jonah feared the people of Nineveh. They were powerful, cruel, and known for their violence. Instead of obeying, Jonah made a choice: to run. Jonah fled to the port city of Joppa and found a ship bound for Tarshish, a place in the opposite direction of Nineveh. He paid the fare, hurried aboard, and hoped to sail far away from God's presence. The sea breeze was calm, and Jonah breathed in relief, believing he had escaped the divine command. But God had other plans. Not long after they set sail, dark clouds gathered over the sea. The wind howled like 1,000 voices, and waves rose high, crashing against the ship with terrifying force. The sailors shouted in fear, each crying out to their own gods, throwing cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But the storm only grew worse, and Jonah, unaware of the chaos, was asleep in the lower deck. The captain found Jonah fast asleep and cried, "How can you sleep at a time like this? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so we will not perish." Jonah awoke, his heart pounding as the ship groaned under the storm's fury. The sailors, desperate to know who was responsible, decided to cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. They demanded, "Tell us, who is responsible for this trouble upon us? What do you do? Where do you come from?" Jonah answered, "I am a Hebrew and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." The men trembled. They knew Jonah was fleeing from God. "What have you done?" they cried as the storm grew wilder, threatening to tear the ship apart. Jonah knew what had to be done. He shouted over the roaring wind, "Pick me up and throw me into the sea, and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you." The sailors hesitated. They didn't want to harm him. But as the storm raged even fiercer, they prayed to the Lord, begging for forgiveness, and reluctantly threw Jonah into the raging waters. The moment Jonah hit the water, the sea grew calm. The wind stopped, and the waves settled like glass. The sailors were astonished, filled with awe at the power of the God of Israel. They offered sacrifices and made vows to him. But Jonah sank deeper into the sea, surrounded by silence and darkness. His body grew heavy, and his last thought was a prayer for mercy before the world faded away. Then the Lord provided a great fish to swallow Jonah, and he remained in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Inside the creature's dark belly, Jonah was alive, and for the first time, he was still. Surrounded by water, seaweed, and echoing darkness, Jonah began to pray. He cried out, "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you." For 3 days, Jonah prayed, repented, and promised to obey God's will. The fish swam through the dark depths, waiting for God's command. Then the Lord commanded the fish, and it spat Jonah out onto dry land. Jonah lay on the shore, weak but alive, the waves gently washing over him as he looked toward the horizon. He knew now that there was no escaping God's plan. God spoke to Jonah again, "Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim the message I give you." This time Jonah obeyed. He entered the city and preached, "40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown." The people listened. They believed God's warning and began to repent. From the poorest peasant to the king himself, they wore sackcloth and fasted, praying for mercy. When the king heard Jonah's words, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, and sat in ashes. He declared, "Let everyone call urgently on God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence. Who knows? God may yet relent and with compassion turn from his fierce anger so that we will not perish." When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he had compassion and did not bring the destruction he had threatened. But Jonah, sitting outside the city, grew angry. He could not understand how God could spare a people so wicked. God caused a plant to grow overnight to give Jonah shade, but then sent a worm to destroy it. Jonah lamented, and God said, "You care about this plant, But should I not care about the great city of Nineveh, where more than 120,000 people live? And in that moment, Jonah understood the depth of God's mercy, that it is not just for one nation or one people, but for all who turn to him. For even in disobedience, God's grace always finds a way to bring us back.